Stop stealing my assigned parking space. I wasn't sure if this was petty revenge or malicious compliance, but I put it here as seemed better. A little long I think, but good I hope. I used to work at a large car dealer and everyone was given assigned parking. The women usually got the first few rows as the lot could be a little dark and scary during the winter, so consequently the guys got the rows up against the fence further away. No big deal. Anyway, my spot ended up being way down in the back corner of the lot and that was fine with me. Every now and then, I would show up and there was a car in my spot, leaving me to scramble for another before work started. The problem being that the used car salesmen were trying to hide a car they had prospects on over the weekend, and didn't want it sold out from under them until they could show up on their next shift, and if they worked Sunday they usually had Monday off. Salesmen being salesmen, they would steal a sale from their brother to make a buck, but that's another issue. So they would hide cars in employee parking, and then the person whose spot they stole would have to find another spot, usually at the last minute, and sometimes they would be a dick, and just take someone else's assigned spot, causing a cascade effect. For some reason they seemed to take my spot a lot. The first couple times I went to HR and told them, and they said they would pass it on, but it still happened 4 to 5 times a month and I was getting tired of it. On a bright and early Monday, I came in and sure enough there was a used car in my spot. I was in a particular mood, so I grabbed the keys to the tow truck and moved the car way out onto the service low, and dumped it into the area our body shop used to store cars waiting for parts. I put the truck away and then parked my truck, a fine 75e Scout, in the spot and went to work. A few hours later a salesman came looking for the car and after only finding my Scout, went around asking who owned said Scout, and finally found me. He wanted to know where his car was and I played stupid. I asked him where was it parked, and made him take me to where he last saw it. He said right here, and pointed to my space with my Scout in it. I said I don't know, this is employee parking and it shouldn't be here anyway. Someone must have moved it. You should go see HR or your manager and complain to them, and I walked off. I assumed he found it because I didn't see him again. Next Monday the same thing happened, but this time I towed the car and parked it across the street on another dealer's lot. I knew the manager there and he said it was fine. I returned the tow truck and went to work. A few hours later another salesman was back in my face looking for his car. I told him the same thing, I have no idea what you are talking about, and I went back to work. A few hours later, HR, the used car manager and the salesman show up in my bay looking for the same car from earlier. So the manager and HR started asking me where the car was, and I asked them to show me where it was parked. We went down to the lower lot, and he pointed to my spot with my Scout sitting in, and said it was right here. I asked him, so it was parked right here, in my assigned parking place and now it's gone? He said yes, it was parked right here, and I added in my spot. I just want to confirm that. Yes, in your spot. The UCM was getting annoyed with all of this. I asked, why are you getting pissed at me? Your kid's pointing at the sales guy, keep parking them here, it's my assigned spot and I've been dealing with this for months. He responds, I'll deal with that, where's the fucking car? I said parked across the street at Friendly Dealers. What the fuck? How did it get there? I towed it. Hilarity and anger ensued and I went back to work. HR said please don't do that anymore, come see me first. All was fine for about the next week until the following Monday, and sure enough there was another car parked in my spot. Pissed, I went to see HR, and she said she would talk to the manager as soon as he shows. Tuesday and the same car is still there. I thought fuck this, and drove my Scout up front, and since it had been raining and my roads were all dirt and mud, my Scout looked pretty bad. I parked it in the used car manager's spot right outside his office, and made a point of parking badly and on the curb with mud clumping on the ground. I went to work. About 2 hours later when that manager showed up to work I get paged over the intercom. Jay, please see the UCM in his office. I thought this is going to be good. I walked into his office and he points to my Scout. Is that yours? Yes. Why is it parked there? Because even after last week's incident with the towed car, your kids have parked in my spot again. So every time they park a car there I'll park here.
Well, you need to move your car.
I can't, my spot is occupied.
It can't stay there.
Well, it's going to until your kids move that car. And every day from now on if there is a car in my spot I'm parking here.
Who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Move the car or I'll get it towed.
What the fuck? Is your problem? This is all your fault for not dealing with like a manager. You want to play that way, I'll move my Scout, but before I do look at the rear number on that thing.
So what?
It's a nice big steel bumper and what I'll do is just back into my spot, and if there is anything in my way I'll just push it backwards. How does that sound?
You can't do that.
Will get off your lazy ass and tell your people to stop hiding cars in my fucking spot. I'm tired of doing this. My car stays until your car moves. And I walked out. I get back to my bay and about 10 minutes later, I hear over the loudspeaker, "Jay, please see general manager in his office immediately." I walk into the GM's office and the used car manager and HR are both there. The UCM looks pissed and HR looks amused. The GM asks what's going on. I told him. I spoke to the salesman and asked nicely. I spoke to HR and told her what's going on, and I've spoken to Commander Douchebag a few times and about his people parking cars in my assigned parking. They continued, so I started parking in his spot when his people park in mine. He shakes his head, asks the UCM if this is the case, and he starts to yammer. The GM just holds his hand up and says stop. He looks to HR and asks if this is true, and she said this has happened. The GM asks, "Can you please move your car and I'll settle this?" I closed the door and could hear the GM reaming the UCM through a closed door 30 feet away. Make me feel like a loser? Let me call your mom.
When I was in middle school, I would walk home from school since it was only a couple of blocks away. I was a bit of an emo kid, 2004, as well as quiet and kept myself. Well, one day I'm walking home from school minding my own business, when a group of guys from my grade, about 4 or 5 of them, ride their bikes past me. These guys were the popular preppy kids and were pretty obnoxious. They ride their bikes past me yelling things like what a loser I am and just making me feel like shit. So I go home and cried a little, but then I remembered that our school had a student directory with students' phone number, address, and the parent's name. So I called 2 of the boys' mother, the other ones were not in the phone book, pretending to be my older sister, and let them know what the boys said, and how it made me cry. Both mothers were furious and apologized for their behavior. I felt pretty good that they would get in trouble. I thought it was over, but it wasn't. While my family is eating dinner, we get a knock on the door. My mom opens it and calls me shortly after. I go to the front door and there I see T, the main one, calling me names, with his mom, and he is crying. His mom forces him to apologize and promise that he will never do it again. I guess the phone book works both ways, and that's probably how they found my address. Thinking about it now, it was petty, but boy did that feel good back then. University bookstore tries to use me. I was commenting on a post from someone wondering if US students really paid $150 or more for textbooks that they couldn't use a year later, and realized my response actually kind of belonged here. Here is the extended version of it. I took an economics class in 2014 and the version of the book we needed was outdated. Our professor said that she chose that version because it was available, and about half the price of the newest version. Our bookstore carried it for about $300. My books were paid for by the VA from benefits of my Army service, and I had to use a voucher system and purchase from the bookstore if the needed text was available there, so I did. At the end of the semester, I went to sell it back. I did this every semester since I could make a few bucks off them rather than let them rot in my house somewhere. I was offered a penny. Yes, 1 cent, because the book was outdated. Now, it's not the kid's fault. Hess was just scanning the barcode and letting the computer pull the buyback price. I knew they are going to turn around and sell it used for $250. Obviously, I was not going to let a business use me just to overcharge the hell out of the next student. I was so pissed that I held on to the book over the summer break, and then when the bookstore opened again for the fall semester, I got my revenge. I waited near the bookstore for a few hours and handed it to the first person I saw buying the book. I told them they could have it for free and to please try and hand it off to someone else next semester if possible, as the bookstore was only going to give them a penny for it. They handed me $20, thanked me, and told me to get lunch.